Hello and welcome to the Animation Essay Podcast. I'm Julia Smuts Louw, back after a long break while I was producing a brand new animation fan, but I think this episode will be worth the wait. As many of you know, the Cape Town International Animation Festival has just been and gone, and one of our star guests was Peter Ramsey, director of the sensational Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, along with Rodney Rothman and Bob Persichetti. This directing trio and producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller won the Best Animated Feature Oscar for this movie, which was the first animated Spider-Man and the first to focus on the character of Miles Morales, an alternative universe Spider-Man of color. Peter talked to us about coming up as a live-action storyboard artist on iconic films like Fight Club and Tank Girl, what Spider-Verse has meant to Africans here and elsewhere, and of course how he handles all the responsibility that comes with all that power, or however it goes.
It's such a pleasure to be here. It's you guys don't even know. It's a wonderful place. The festival's great. The people and the community here are just like, it's beautiful. So I'm having a great time. I'm really happy.
It's your first time, but you're coming back.
I will be back. Have to see more of the country. It's amazing.
Well, having you guys here has been amazing. This is just a great year for the festival. So a friend of mine said that you're getting a little bit tired of talking about Spider-Man.
You know what? I don't know. I actually I really love the movie myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I do think the process of making it was really interesting. So I totally understand why people want to hear about it, and I'm proud of it. So it really isn't that tough to talk about.
But I thought maybe we just to start off on a different foot, we could talk about you a little bit and your background, how you got your start. I mean, your career seems to have. I mean, you only pick great movies. How did you manage that?
I don't know. I've worked on a lot of not so great ones in my life that earlier in my career. Yeah. But you learn on everything. So.
Going through that list, it's like it's an interesting sensibility because there's some really quirky stuff. They're like quite edgy things as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was just wondering what's been your like lodestone as someone choosing projects. What do you ask yourself when you're trying to decide what to work on?
It's interesting you say that because the idea of really having a choice it's really only happening now. It's very recent. And a lot of it, I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky to have worked on projects and with filmmakers, while I was working in live action, especially that were in line with my taste and the kind of things I was interested in. So, like when I was in live action, I got to storyboard for Francis Coppola, who I idolized, David Fincher, who I was a huge fan of.
That was Fight Club, right?
Yeah, Fight Club and Panic Room. For David Fincher, for Ang Lee.
Kristen Stewart's little...
Yes, exactly, her debut. I remember when she was first cast. So there were a lot of my heroes I got to meet, a lot of my cinematic heroes. And, I got to learn from them. So I've been incredibly lucky that way. And I guess as a result, you just kind of... I don't know. It really is being prepared for opportunities when they pop up.
And I suppose being multi-skilled as well, because you've worn quite a few different hats. And
yeah, I would say that. And I should say there have been a lot of films I worked on just because I needed a job, and so now I'm working on any number of films that I've worked on that they're maybe not the greatest films in the world, but I might have met someone, a production designer or a director that I really liked and learned from, or I may have picked up a new skill along the way that I didn't have before. And a lot of working in film is about your relationship with the people as you're working on them. So that can be as rewarding as the quality of the film itself.
And judging by who came to South Africa this year, you guys all know each other as well and are working together. So
absolutely, yeah. Aaron Warner was actually the guy who got me into animation from live action. So that was kind of interesting, and we've been friends for a long time.
And how was that switch? Did you feel like you were suddenly moving in slow motion?
Yes.
Because animation has such a long time horizon.
Absolutely. It's a huge difference from the time frame of live action. But it's so much more story intensive that it filled the need for me to be able to be more involved with actually constructing the story of a movie.
So that's what you were most passionate about?
Yeah, absolutely. Because my time in live action, I only ever got into storyboarding because I wanted to be a director, and at the time that was a pathway that I could work in the industry and support myself and be involved with filmmaking. When, I couldn't afford to make my own films when I started in the industry because, we didn't have digital cameras, we didn't have iPhones, we didn't have editing software that you could afford to buy and put on a laptop.
Chatting to David Prescott, and as you're saying, there's no excuse anymore.
Yeah,
if you want
exactly.
to make a film, why don't you just make it?
You can learn everything you need to know online. There's a YouTube video to teach you everything. You can get your iPhone. You can download some editing software for not that much, and you can just go. It's a totally different world. So I do think if I had had access to that stuff back then, I might not have ever have been a storyboard artist.
Really?
Yeah.
So you weren't one of those kids that just sits and draws?
Oh, I did. No, I drew all my life. I've drawn ever since I could hold a pencil, basically. And interestingly enough, I was always drawing little stories. But just as a career, because for me, the fact that I could draw meant that, I can earn a living working in the field that I want to work in and get closer to my goal of being a director. That was for me, storyboarding was it was something I enjoyed and I felt I could do and do well, but it was also for me, a step on the ladder to eventually being able to direct my own movies. Whereas now, the advice that I give anyone is, if you want to direct movies, you're in a position now where you can just start making them. And you'll be a bad director for a while, but you'll be a director, and you can get better, And
it's such an important lesson because I think for certain types of personalities, if it's not as good as what you see in your head, you just don't even want to start.
Exactly.
It's not perfect.
Yeah, which is I know I've been like that in the past, and it's held me back, and that's probably the number one thing that holds a lot of people back. The fear.
How did you get over it? You didn't get over it.
Yeah, I may not totally be over it, but no, I will say, once you get to working on these things, you start to realize, nobody knows everything. There's no such thing as somebody who comes in and gets it right every time on the first try. So it's you learn that the process of developing any idea, whether it's writing or shooting a film or whatever it is, it takes trial and error, and it takes exploration, and it takes a little emotional risk on your part to fail in front of other people, and then to be able to say, what, that didn't work, so at least we learned from that. Let's try something else and keep moving.
And do you find animation being such a collaborative medium? Do you find that it helps to take the edge off that fear because it's a bunch of you, or does it make it worse because you're kind of a watched pot waiting to boil?
Well, that really depends on you personally. I mean, at this point, and I'd even say for when I came into the animation industry myself, I had spent probably 10 years. I probably spent a good 10 years in live action, storyboarding on a lot of big films, working with a lot of big directors, and being a part of the process from the earliest days of the film till well into shooting. So I had the experience of getting to see really how these things are made from a pretty privileged vantage point. And so a lot of it was demystified for me. And I would see David Fincher, he had no idea how to do that on, day one. He eventually figured out by day 55, but he tried 8 other things that completely didn't work, that nobody watching the movie is ever going to see. He just looks like a complete, flawless genius because you're seeing the end result of a lot of trial and error and a lot of head scratching and trying to figure things out and collaboration with other people. So by the time I came to animation, I didn't have a huge fear of not knowing what to do, and I didn't have a huge fear of being embarrassed about not getting things right on the first try, because I always knew, well, the movies, they always get finished, they always get made.
Sometimes right on the deadline or after it.
Yeah, and there's always somebody there who's going to be able to help. It's not all on one person. So a lot of those fears had been drummed out of me. It's not to say that I never had any nervousness or trepidation about everything. That's just human, I think.
Yeah.
But I was lucky in that way that I had worked at a high enough level in the industry that I was kind of I could take it a little lightly. Everything wasn't a crushing defeat if something didn't go right.
Did you manage to keep that kind of lightness or handling things lightly into a project like Spider-Man, where it's not just a new role for you, but you're all kind of trying to do something completely new and different and break the mold?
Yeah, I think so. And it was, and on Spider-Verse, even more than anything I've ever done, the idea of, try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and keep going until you find the right path. Because so much of that movie was like, iteration upon iteration upon iteration, and not being too precious in the effort to get to the final to the vision that we kind of all had for it.
And so, do you feel like you had a crystallized vision before you started? Because in your talk yesterday, you spoke about the kind of magical effect of having like technical geniuses and artists together, creating these tools and just saying, what if we tried this? And in some way creating some of the imperfections of the comic book form on the screen. Was that something that you guys saw it in your mind going in, or was it?
That was a discovery. I mean, I think the thing that we had, at the very beginning was Phil Lord, who wrote the initial treatment for the film, and in the first couple of drafts of the script captured a really clear and unique and fun tone that had a real strong emotional undercurrent. And we all felt, anybody who's read those first treatments and scripts went like, oh my God, if you can like capture this feeling and tone, you'll really, really have something.
That's it.
Yeah. So we all had something we could point to and say, that's what we're trying to do. And if we go too far away from that and it doesn't feel like that anymore, then we're doing something wrong.
What scene was it that like really was your North Star? I mean, for me, it was obviously the opening scene. It sets a tone that kind of says, this is not a Pixar movie. It's not a Marvel superhero movie. It's going to be something more intimate. It's this kid kind of singing to himself. He doesn't really know the word.
Yeah.
I had a colleague, actually a black colleague, who said that from that moment he started crying. Like,
oh, really?
South African guy, because it's just this. It's this surprising, like, little soft underbelly of representation. It's not like not the superhero. It's like it's just this guy kind of singing to himself.
It's doing something that everybody who's ever sung to themselves has done. You don't remember the words, and you fumble, and you recognize yourself in it.
Yeah.
And I think particularly for Black people, being able to do that in a movie meant for a mass audience, it's been a rare experience to have like that intimate a relationship with a character on screen so quickly. And I think that, but you don't even have to be Black to identify with that.
No,
everybody has done that. And it endears you to the character because you see some of your own experience in that character, and that's what kind of makes you bond to them.
And it sets you up to expect something different from maybe what we've seen before in Spider-Man and in animation and in Superman.
Absolutely. Yeah. That scene, interestingly enough, that was not always the way that we met Miles. That wasn't in like the first versions of the script. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm saying is that it went through so many changes. I mean, the thing that the very first versions of the script had were, like I said, the tone, the emotion, the how it was Miles's. It really was Miles's experience, and
so
all that stuff had to be finessed.
That like you kept in mind as
Well, actually. There was, but the weird thing is, it was stuff that ended up getting cut out of the movie. Because very early, anybody who's read the Miles Morales comics knows that his roommate Ganke was like a huge part of the comic book series. And for a couple of different reasons, one of the reasons because the character a version of the character kind of got put into the live action Spider-Man Homecoming movie. And the studio was really nervous about us having the original version, which now had been in a movie that came out before we were coming out. So we kind of and we had done a lot with that character. And in Phil's script, the emotional backbone of the first part of the script was the relationship between those two kids.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like, there's storyboards, and I think on the Blu-ray they're putting some of those storyboards on so people could see.
That would be great.
But it was like it was so charming, and the relationship between those two was so enjoyable to watch that we were like, I don't even care if he ever becomes Spider-Man. I could just watch a whole movie about these two.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it was like there was real emotional weight to their friendship, and it really meant something in the story. So for me in the early days, and that was some of the first stuff, because I came out as a storyboard artist before I was directing on it, and that was some of the earliest stuff that I worked on. So for me, the tone of that and just the fun and the emotion of it was something that really, like, I wanted us to always be able to hold on to in some way, shape, or form. And even though all that stuff got stripped out of the movie, that emotional context and that feeling, was still something that I think drove a lot of what we ended up with.
That's interesting. It would be great to see, because even regardless of what was happening in other movies, it feels like the movie was full. It's like,
yes,
it would have been interesting to see how you made space for that, because you already had
yes,
the initial relationship between the dad and Miles was like his departure point, and then Peter Parker becomes the impact character, and kind of you've got those two key relationships already. So
yeah, exactly, and we kind of realized that later on. It was we were all really kind of upset and like anguished over the thought that we were going to have to take out this stuff that we loved so much, but we kind of realized, actually, it makes space for like the more like essential version of the story of Miles and his dad, and Peter Parker coming in as the mentor who can teach him something that, his dad's not Spider-Man, so there's no way he could ever teach him, but there's still the relationship with the dad and the uncle. All that stuff, there was just room for it to breathe.
Yeah.
After we stripped John K.
I was listening to an interview with Rodney as well, and some of the darlings he had to kill, including Australian Spider-Man and Hasidic Spider-Man.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, I can see how.
Oh yeah.
How he might have been in love with those. They sound like fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it's one of those things that I'll see Spider-Man came in late in the game, and it's like. It was, we can't build another model. We can't design another character. What are you doing?
Like, what if I really, really, really wanted to?
Yeah.
So you started as a storyboard, and he started as script, and then you both kind of ended up as directors.
Yes.
So was that just like this is what the project needs, or?
It was because Bob Persichetti had come on first, and it was tough. I mean, it was a big production, and there was a lot of stuff that had to be figured out on the technical end, on the aesthetic end. The script that Phil turned over was like, I think 160 pages, which is it's gigantic for a feature film. And it's like, of course, everybody knows, well, you have to cut it down. But the problem was that everybody loved the script so much. Everybody loved the tone, all the things I talked about. And it was really hard to make any changes that anybody would sign off on. Phil and Chris had left to go do the Han Solo movie, so they were in London. And
would you think they would have been better butchers? Like, well, just harsher.
Well, it would have been butchered quicker because the guy who initially wrote it and that the studio really loved and trusted would have been doing it. So anything he had, I think our producers would have been a lot more. Would have accepted it much quicker. Now, Bob and later me, when I came on as director, we both tried our hand at like cutting down and reshaping, and because we had to, and it was always a push and pull of, but I missed this and I missed that, and in Phil's draft there was this, and in Phil's draft there was that, and even Rodney came on early and wrote another draft that. It just, everybody felt like, it lost too much from the Phil. And Rodney came back later after Phil and Chris came back, after, what happened on Han Solo. Those guys came back like many months earlier than we thought they were going to come back. So it was like, now they're here. Now,
is that a lot of cooks?
It was a lot of cooks. It was a lot of like, okay, wait a minute. Who's like, but there was a lot to, there was a lot that we had done in the interim to reprove to Phil and Chris, who were like, well, why did that? Well, and it's not like they disliked, any of the stuff that we had done, but if you're not there and you don't see all the footprints, you don't see the logical path to X, Y, and Z and why you end up making a certain decision, it's a little hard to wrap your head around it at first if you were the one who originally wrote the script. So a lot of discussions, a lot of back and forth, but eventually Rodney wrote another draft of the script that incorporated a lot of what Bob and I had been working on with what Phil had been working on. And, of course, Phil was there at that point to chime in too, and we ended up with something that was the first real stab at something that was much closer to what the finished movie ended up being. It still changed a lot after that, but it was finally something that, it has the signposts and it has the very rough structure of what it was eventually going to be that everybody felt kind of good about.
From that like intimate beginning and it's very personal sort of emotional journey, there's a point at which the film becomes more of a meditation on form. When the spider people kind of show up,
right,
and paying homage to all those those characters,
right.
What were the conversations about holding on to this tone as it moved away from a story of character into a story of form? It's like that third act just explodes and takes you on a ride.
Well, one of our biggest fears was that we were going to lose any sense of the Miles story and the emotion of that as we got into this crazier area, and we desperately didn't want that to happen. And I think the film definitely, the tone of it shifts into this when this multiverse idea really sort of explodes. We were trying to do everything we could to try to still root it in Miles's experience of that, so that all these new characters pop up and they're directly relating to him because they, all the pressure is on him to get them back home all of a sudden. And he's trying to step up and take his place as one of them, but everyone sees that, well, he just isn't ready yet. He just hasn't made the leap to really embracing what it is to be a spider person. And so just trying to hold on to that thread of, is Miles going to get it together so that he can take his place alongside these guys as all this crazy stuff is happening was kind of the emotional through line that we tried to hold on to. And I guess it has its ultimate payoff when he has to, he gets the other guys home, but he still has to shut down the machine and defeat Kingpin to do it. And that's he has to do that all on his own. So that was kind of the trajectory we were trying to go for. And it's it's a balancing act when as you say, the form of the film and that aspect of it starts to become so pronounced and so it becomes this visual just explosion of stuff.
And there's so much fun to be had with the property that's so well loved and so many references to put in. It must be
yes, but that was our balancing act. That we can go pretty crazy and we can introduce a lot of new stuff, but we can never lose complete touch with Miles' story, or else it's just we're just throwing.
Otherwise, what's it all for? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I like that as well about Kingpin, since you mentioned him, that I think the adage is that a good villain has a good reason to believe that what he's doing is a good thing. And for him, he wanted to, spoiler alert, there's been so many, to bring back a version of his wife and son.
Right.
And I thought that was like an emotional resonance with Miles as well, because unlike so many superheroes, Miles has this intact nuclear family that love him. So he's kind of departing from an emotionally stable point, even if he's frustrated in his life.
Exactly.
And then
Miles,
your villain is the other side of that coin. He doesn't have his family.
It became a perfect mirror image, because Miles is he's afraid of losing his family if the universe collapses, and Kingpin is willing to have the universe collapse to get his family back. So it's interesting because that Kingpin story was not always there. In the earliest days, there wasn't a fully fleshed out rationale for why the Kingpin was doing what he was doing. At some point it was like, well, he's trying to find this new kind of energy in the multiverse so he can create his own super people, or there were different versions of it going around. And for a while we were playing with we used to have a version of the Kingpin that was like, he was so big and massive that he was walking around on canes. And he was and it was kind of creepy. It was kind of cool too, though, because he was trying to find a way to basically restore his body.
Right.
And part of the reason for him to part of the reason behind the collider was to siphon off was to find dark matter or something like that. And, we explored that for a while, and the thing that it did give us was, okay, well, this guy needs a relatable and kind of intense,
an emotional goal.
Yeah, an emotional goal. And it was like, I want control of my body back. I want to be a full human, and I have to watch this other guy swinging around in a spider suit, and he can do anything. And that was sort of but the idea popped up, and I think it might have been from Brian Michael Bendis, who created Miles, that, what if the Kingpin wants to get his family back? And there was a lot of back and forth, because it was like, a lot of people were creeped out by the idea that he was going to like pluck some other family from another wife from another dimension, and that it was going to be, is that too creepy? Is that too much? But eventually, I think the symmetry with Miles, everybody started to see that, that's really valuable. And just the idea of having...
it falls into place immediately. It's like,
just the idea of the Kingpin having an actual relatable emotional connection made him more real.
Just since you mentioned like the genesis in comics, is it true that Miles arose out of basically the Barack Obama era?
that was that's I've heard that. I think it's true. I think Brian. I've heard that Brian Michael Bendis kind of was, the election of Obama kind of made him go, well, man, why can't that happen in the comic book world? And I think at that time Marvel Comics had created a whole other side universe to do alternate versions of their characters. But the alternate universe was still Peter Parker, and he was still a teenager. He still went to high school. He was like, it was just a way. I think it was a way of trying to make characters a little more hip again for younger readers. But even that, I think, started to feel like, well, as the series has gone on for a couple of years, he's just another Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And so Brian was like, what if we really changed it up? What if that in this other universe? Because there was still classic Peter Parker going. His comic book was still going. And there was just another duplicate universe with this Peter Parker. And so, well, what if we got rid of that Peter Parker and a new Spider-Man had to take his place? And that would really be different. And, that was the idea behind Miles Morales.
It's a funny example of fiction or speculative fiction actually dragging behind reality for a change.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I think I read like the other inspiration was Sarah Kelly watched Community and saw Donald Glover in a Spider-Man onesie that he'd been like a fan pick for Spider-Man for the next movie.
Yeah, because there was that idea. Peter Parker should be black in the next one.
Can we maybe talk a little bit about the look and feel of the movie?
Sure.
I mean, there's some stuff that without the fantastic visuals we saw yesterday will be a little bit hard to describe. But I think like when you showed us, for instance, that magic cube.
Right.
The programmers came up with this way to create life and color in backgrounds, and it's just one of those things that feels like, this is the next thing. It's going to be the next big thing.
It's like you would never have thought of that, but it's an elegant solution to a problem.
And you kind of went in with the idea of paying homage to print techniques by replicating chromatic aberrations and a smear effect instead of motion blur.
Right.
Because you wouldn't be shooting it if it was a comic.
Right.
So
yeah, exactly.
Was that something that you all kind of were on board with right away? Like you're going to do this extremely ambitious technical thing, or was it something that as you started seeing it work, it became possible?
I think we started off with let's do something people have never seen before.
Okay.
Let's do something extremely ambitious, but we didn't know what that was. We really didn't know. I think the idea that let's make it really feel like a comic book, and we knew we wanted to do stuff like have sound effects on screen, and that we wanted to do panelization with some of the images
and the little emotion lines above their heads.
Yeah, we knew we wanted to try some of that stuff, but we didn't know we didn't know stuff like, we're going to use halftone dots in our lighting to sort of, we're going to find a way to use that language to describe light and shadow. We didn't know that. We didn't know that we were going to have black emotion lines on the characters' faces that the animators were going to essentially animate in 2D over CG animation.
You were saying that some of that was was an AI that learned to
map
the outlines.
There were two versions of that. There were we had what we call form lines, which described form on the face, like the bridge of a nose, or the way we did eyes. If that would have been a good. I wish I had an image of that, because if you saw a close up of the characters, our characters' eyes, there's a very heavy black ink line that looks like it was drawn by hand around the iris of the character, and it something about it helped graphically really nail the character's eyes, and that's one of the first things that you look at and respond to in an animated character, and that making the eyes feel like somebody had actually drawn them with an ink brush by hand really was a big. I remember the day we first saw that idea, was like, oh my, that works so well. I'm so connected to the character. So, but these things were they were the product of gradual discovery and development, and they didn't. It didn't all land at once. It was we, as a team, we had sort of a vague idea of what we wanted to do, and then it was just people trying solutions. Our production designer Justin Thompson, and in collaboration with the visual development team, and also the guys at Sony ImageWorks, who were going to have to do it technically, who were going to have to pull it off and find ways to proceduralize a lot of these things. And that led to rewriting software and new code and changing a lot of the existing pipeline to be able to, different render scripts and all these kinds of things.
How big was your VFX team?
It was big. We had a lot of numbers wise, I don't know. But we had our guys down in LA, our leads, technical leads down in LA, kind of working on that stuff. And there were just brilliant guys on the VFX team figuring out how to actually make that stuff work. That I never would have thought some of that stuff was possible. In my experience, it was just completely new for me. So it was an amazing thing to see Justin sort of work the levers of the studio to bring that stuff into being, along with Danny Dimian, who was a VFX, our head of VFX for ImageWorks.
You were saying yesterday how Alberto Miegri and some others might have wanted to go a different route with 2D and painting first.
Yeah.
Was that at all a sacrifice for you, also being an artist?
I'm also really pragmatic. I mean, I'm a storyboard artist first and foremost, and I think for me, even my storyboards, I'm not precious about them at all. It's just a means to an end to get to a final desired goal. So, what Alberto was proposing, it was beautiful for a certain version of the film. I mean, I think we eventually...
Shorter film.
Yeah, no, literally, yeah, short film. I mean, we the direction he was taking some of the characters in, it was pretty avant-garde and amazing. I mean, everybody who saw what he did was completely blown away. But we started realizing that, tonally, it wasn't the best fit for what we had in the script, and there was no way that script was going to change. Or there's no way the tone of the script was going to change. Because as I said,
that was your North Star.
That was the North Star. Everyone was in love with it. And it was we're going to need characters that can plausibly do a greater emotional range than it looks like we'll be able to do with these characters. So, but Alberto's DNA, I mean, it's all over the movie. That was the kind of the primal inspiration for what we ended up doing.
I've looked at some of the stuff.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
So impressive.
Absolutely beautiful.
But I think pragmatism is a very fine quality in a director.
Yeah, but pragmatism, but also I think staying true to the material of the story. And when Justin came and was able to look at what Alberto had done, but look at the demands of the story and the emotional drive of the script. We all knew we had to find something that was going to allow us to hit the tone of the movie better.
It's amazing how everything kind of serves that, even stuff
Yes.
that you don't notice until you say it, and then it's
100%.
mind-boggling how much love has gone into like every decision.
That's right, and it's like this movie was a perfect example of something I tell people at every turn. You just have to ask yourself, and on every level of the process, what story am I trying to tell? And that can be about a scene, it can be about a shot, it can be about a piece of wardrobe, it can be about a line of dialogue, it can be about someone's hairdo. I mean, if you ever get feel unsure or get stuck about a decision, you just stop and go, wait a minute, what story am I telling with this decision? And that becomes your compass.
Yeah, I think it seems to have like blown the lid off possibilities in a way. I mean, at least for us, I think last year with Black Panther and then Spider-Verse, it was like this 1-2 punch that everybody's been wondering what we want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going too far in saying that when we looked at those two movies, it was like, oh, we can do that. Aaron Warner said in his talk today, like, an animated movie is no longer for kids, and Shrek kind of opened that door.
Right.
I think Marvel's movies have shown that superhero movies aren't.
Mm-hmm.
They're not for any specific viewer. They're kind of what's happening.
Yeah, they're just another genre, like we used to have cowboy movies.
And now Spider-Verse is like both of those things, but it's also artistic and in an interesting way. So I was wondering, how do you handle the pressure of having created this thing that means so much to so many people? I'm sure you've noticed it means a lot of people in South Africa.
Know.
And has the pressure changed as it gets more and more successful?
Yeah, I don't know that there's any pressure. It's
a responsibility, you can call it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the only real responsibility is on whoever's working on the sequel to like, oh my God, how do we, is anybody going to have anything close to the response that the first one got because it was new?
Yeah.
That's tough, but...
So will you be working on the sequel? Don't know yet. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. Who knows? I mean, I'd really like to be associated in some way, but nobody really knows anything about the reality of the sequels yet. There's ideas floating around, and I think there's early work that's been done, but there's nothing concrete yet. So it's honestly, we finished this movie basically at the end of November, and then it was just right onto the train of promotion and awards and like screenings, and there hasn't been a single chance to stop until like when I fly home from South Africa, it will actually be over.
Oh, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, it will actually be like,
I saw another little like Hollywood Reporter interview, I think with Bob, where he said, I wish Peter was here so you can see how scruffy he looks. I hope he's referring to how hard his work and not just generally.
We were all pretty scruffy looking during the making of that movie. It was tough.
What's next for you now? Just a rest.
Hopefully a vacation. I'm talking with several people. I really like vaguely in super early stages on a few things. Aaron Warner and I are talking about some of the stuff he's got going on at Sony with his international projects, and there are a couple of things of my own that I'm maybe now I have a little window I can push some of them forward. So, but it's kind of vague right now, and I'm also talking to other people and seeing what comes my way. So there's just a little period of like taking a breath and considering some things, and I think a little further down the road, something will stick.
Well, can't wait to see what happens next, and I hope we see you back here again soon.
Me too.
There's a lot more to see.
That's the thing. There's so much more to see, and wow, it's just I'm really I'm just kind of blown away by the spirit of the people here. This animation community seems so supportive and kind, and like it's really it's very inspiring.
That's it for this month, but we'll see you back here soon, I promise, with some more interviews with our amazing CTIAF guests and some local legends too. In the meantime, why not check out our website www.animationsa.org and think about signing up for a membership if you haven't already. I'm Julia Smuts Louw. Thanks for listening.